Next up, we have Galen McNamara of Summa Silver. And Galen I've known for a while. I'm really looking forward to an update on the projects in New Mexico, but also the Hughes property just outside of Tonopah. Okay. Really curious to hear what you're up to.
Okay.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Guy. Is my mic working here? Yeah, okay, great. Hello, everyone. I'm Galen McNamara. I'm the CEO of Summa Silver. I'll just get going here. The photo is a nice photograph of Tonopah, actually, Kai. So Summa Silver, it's a company that I founded in March of 2020, right before really the COVID explosion happened as it was happening. But it turned out that it was pretty good timing because we had a great run in the summer of 2020, and that allowed us to establish ourselves on a couple of projects. We're looking in the southwestern United States in these two famous Wild West historic mining districts that really helped shape the early days of the American West, at least when the Americans were there after the Indigenous were. A little bit about the team. Myself, Galen, I'm a geologist going back almost 20 years now. This summer was my 20th year in the field. Before putting together NextGen, I was running all the drilling for a company called NextGen Energy, back to about 2014. Chris Leslie is one of the guys that discovered the Blackwater gold deposit in BC. Chris York joined us from Hecla as our VPX about a year and a half ago. And lots of other strong people there, but really we're a group of, I'd say, mid-career professionals that have had some success on other projects, other jobs, and now want to make a real splash on our own. Quickly, the cap structure: 78 million shares outstanding. The stock's more like 60 cents today, and we've got about $6.5 million, just a little under $6.5 million in working cap. So we're really loaded for bear to do to drill a lot of what I think are going to be big holes. And I'll show you why. Okay, switching gears to talk about the projects. The Mogollon project is a little bit of a strange name, but it's named after one of the old New Mexican governors going back to the 1600s or something like that. This one's in southwestern New Mexico. I have a few on this slide. I have a few cliches up here, like under the radar, unfinished business, But really, this was the largest historic silver producer in the state of New Mexico. Produced something like 16 million ounces of silver and 340,000 ounces of gold at grades of like 800 grams per ton silver equivalent. That we know about. Record keeping back then was not so good. It produced between the 1880s and 1942, and production only shut down here in 1942 because that's when America went into World War II. So that's when all silver and gold mining stopped by law there. Between the 1940s and the 1970s, it was more or less forgotten about. In these old places, land fragmentation is often an issue, where one family will own some little claim and another family will own another little claim, et cetera, et cetera. But in the 1970s, it was put together by a guy named John Livermore. And he's a very well-known geologist in the U.S. He's the guy that found some of the original Carlin deposits for Newmont back in the 1960s. So he really liked this area, and he put it together himself. Did deals with all the small landowners, and then ended up drilling it himself out of his own pocket and had some really good success that I'll get into. But back then, it was just people weren't interested in the vein environment. Everybody in Nevada was trying to find a gram or 2 gram per ton gold deposit that you could walk over. Everyone in Arizona was trying to find the next Morenci. Okay, so here are some of the original results for us. We've drilled 6 holes here, kind of following up on some of that past work. This is an underground side view, I like to call it, a longitudinal section, where the dots that you're seeing there, that's where one of the drill holes went through the page. So we're stepping out on our first target around the old Consolidated Extension mine, and you can see the old mined area there in the white. And it's not exactly rocket science, we're just stepping out what we call down plunge, and on the other side of it. So some of the highlights: hole 5 intersected 448 grams per ton silver equivalent over 31 meters. Hole 4 intersected 429 grams per ton over 11.6 meters. You see there we've drilled 6 holes. All 6 of them have a gram meter, a grade multiplied by meter equivalent of over 2,500, and half of them have that over 5,000. So what we're doing, last year we drilled these 6 holes. We've returned now, and we have 1 rig turning and soon to be 2 in the next couple days here for the next 3.5 months, is that we're going to drill out this box of 500 meters by 350 meters, where we're following up on what we did last year, but also some of the drill holes that were done in the 1970s and 80s, where all the holes that are in there so far have an average true thickness of about 9 meters and an average grade of between 400 and 450 grams per ton equivalent. So that's when I excuse me, when I say silver equivalent, I'm talking about silver and gold only on both of these projects. So it's a nice precious metals, a nice precious metals kick here. Okay, so lastly, I just want to say on this slide, usually when I do presentations, or classically, I kind of start out and I start out and zoom in, but now I'm kind of starting inside and zooming out. So zooming out a little bit, this target, this project has just a very target-rich environment. It's never really seriously been looked at for an epithermal vein field of its type, really, especially at surface and in the U.S. So zooming out about 1.5 kilometers to the south, there's another target on the same vein, the Queen vein. There's another target called the Eberle mine, and it's right here. Where this one was one of the earliest ones that was worked in the 1880s. It was never part of the property package until about a year ago when we found the owner, and she was living in Texas. We went down there and saw her and did a deal with her. And she had some very interesting stories about the area, for sure. But really no data on it except for a few reports that say, oh, hey, it's mineralized down here. There's mineralized drill holes underneath it. We think there's X amount of ounces there. So I see that as oftentimes these targets on these veins are like pearls on a string. You're looking for the next mineralized shoot, and when you find it, you go drill it. So that's probably that's one of the things that we'll drill next year. Okay, now this is a slide that I think brings it all together. This is a slide of the entire project. Just to orient you, that green box is the 500 meters of strike that we're currently drilling this year. In total, there's 50 kilometers of vein and structure on the project, and basically no modern exploration. Some of it's mined, but basically no modern exploration. So the first thing that we did, and when we got here the summer before last, nobody even had any data for sampling at the surface. So we went around, we flew a LiDAR survey to get every little prospect pit that you could find. There was something like 300 or 350 of them. And we went up there and sampled every one. And got some pretty good results. So you can point them out to 2,100 grams per ton, 1,400 grams per ton, 1,300 grams per ton, etc. Well, at the end of the day, there's an area that's about 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers where we still have a lot of joy even left at surface. Okay, so that's the property we're working on now in New Mexico, but I think we're a little more well-known for our property in Nevada called the Hughes property. This is the one that Kai was mentioning. Halfway on the highway between Reno and Las Vegas. It's the eastern half of the Tonopah district, where it's an interesting situation in that we have the eastern half of this district, and our colleagues at Blackrock Silver have the western half of this district. And over a couple of years there, we were both going pretty guns a-blazing on exploration here. So for people that don't know about the Tonopah mining district, it's really one of the reasons that Nevada is known as the Silver State. This and the Comstock lode. Total production from the district is about 175 million ounces of silver and almost 2 million ounces of gold at grades of 1,235 grams per ton silver equivalent. I have here that the property itself is 5.5 kilometers in strike, but I think total between Blackrock and us, it's probably more like 12. And the reason that, just a tip of the cap to the history, the reason that it's called the Hughes property is because it used to be owned by Howard Hughes. He just used to own so much land, so much mining claims that we ended up with a portion of them over the years. But anyway, so since 2020, we've drilled 58 holes on the property. Some of the highlights here: 3,900 grams per ton over 2.8 meters, 536 grams per ton over 18.1 meters, and 1,500 grams per ton over 4.3 meters. Okay, well, I'm kind of throwing a bunch of numbers out at everyone, but to put it into perspective, zoom out a little bit. And there's good that we've found strong mineralization over a trend of 3.5 kilometers and 4 target areas. So briefly, a map of the project. I'll point a few things out. You can see Tonopah is down there at the bottom left with the highway going through it. We actually have mineral rights under some of the town, and if anyone's ever been there and stayed in the old hotel, under the old hotel called the Misbah Hotel as well. But the next slide here, I'm just going to zoom in to the area on the bottom left of this slide. Okay, so lots of drill results here on the left. I don't typically like to read out a bunch of numbers, but let me just concentrate on the map on the right, where Okay, this is those 4 target areas that I was discussing over that 3.5 kilometers. The 2 targets on the left are in the historic part of the district where we're really looking for things that the old timers, I don't want to say missed, but didn't get to. Parallel structures, extensions of old veins. That's where we've done most of our work. That's where we've had most of our success. So that's great. There, every hole, just building ounces. Just building ounces systematically, which is, for us, that's the easy part once you're onto something. So that's about half the story. The other half of the story is the 2 targets on the right. Those are exploration-flavored targets where we're looking for an extension of the entire district. So to put things into perspective a little bit, there's not a laser pointer on here, is there, Kai? No. Okay, well I'll just describe it. To the right of the Belmont target. So look at the center between in between all the 4 targets. Just to the right of the Belmont mine target and just to the left of the Mizpah target. There's a fault that goes through there, and it cuts everything off. And the old-time miners, as they were mining on the west, ran into that fault zone and lost the veins on the other side. Well, we've drilled now in the Mizpah extension and the Ruby discovery. We've hit on all of them, but the Ruby discovery is the one that I think looks most interesting. So now we're just zooming into like a 3D, I'll call this a 3D underground view of Ruby. We've drilled those 3 holes out there. All 3 of them have hit interesting mineralization, the best of which being 469 grams per ton over 2 meters. And those holes, they look close together. They're actually each 100 meters apart if you were to rotate that around. So we were thinking about, okay, where do we go next out here? The veins look great in those holes. The alteration looks great on those holes. Where do we go next? So we ran some geophysics and got some interesting anomalies. So that green blob, I'll call it, that's a resistivity high. That means more quartz. We're looking for more quartz veining. That's probably our target. And then the orange blob, that's chargeability. So that's marking more pyrite, more of the distal alteration, I'll say. Not quite zone proximal. But anyways, okay, so why does that matter? Well, this is 2 kilometers along strike from one of the best American silver districts discovered historically. And we have these large anomalies beside holes that have got a lot of smoke in them that have never been drilled and never even recognized before now. So when we finish drilling in New Mexico, probably right at the end of February, we'd like to rotate back here perhaps in the summer and test this target and test, there's 4 or 5 others on the project that just demand the similar look. Last slide here before I stop. I know I'm just a minute over. So the thing that brought Tonopah... Oh, do I? Okay, excuse me. So the last... The thing that really brought Tonopah into perspective for me when we were putting this project together, well, first I kind of looked at companies like Vizsla now, like Silvercrest now, and thought to myself, okay, well, these are the types of shots I want to take. Similar deposits, although now, in Mexico, I just thought, okay, well, let's start comparing Tonopah to some of the other places. And okay, well, Tonopah has a strike length of 4 kilometers, and it might be difficult to see, but 175 million ounces produced. Well, compare that to Guanajuato or Sandy Mass or Pachuca, 18 kilometers, 7.5 kilometers, and many more ounces produced. That makes sense. Well, I'm just on the lower half of this slide. The length of that white bar is that strike length. So if you take Tonopah at 4 kilometers and that many ounces produced, and you add 1.3 kilometers onto it, and even let it run, it fits in quite nicely with how big these districts can get when they get to be truly world class. And I'll go back, and I'm just going to go back to this slide. That realization kind of caused me to go down there before Summa was even a thing, and stake all of the ground to the east of here, and just stake all of this because, shockingly to me, it was open, and you'd probably never see that in Canada. Okay, I'm going to skip that one. So what we're doing now, 2 really famous high-grade past producers. We're drilling one now, and we're going to be drilling one again later in the year. Really here, it's for me, the thing that gets me up and going every day, and the guys up and going every day, is that we have really 2 shots at that style of success where we can go into one of these historic districts like other very, very strong people have done before and been successful at, and try to come up with another big silver and gold deposit. And that's really the thing for me, and doing it in the U.S. is something that's a little bit unique because they're a little bit difficult to find in the U.S. And well, they're difficult to find everywhere, but we just feel very lucky that we've got 2. So thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Out of time for questions, unfortunately.
Okay.
I'd love to ask you, because I have a couple more, like catalysts. Actually, wait, 10 seconds. Catalysts, next drill results?
Well, we've got about to be 2 rigs on the project now. You'll see what I did last year was, because the Queen vein is so meaty and juicy, like we'll put out core photos and like full high-res core photos on our website. So that's probably coming next.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you so much, Galen.
Thanks. Yeah.
Awesome.